usually about 4 a week. Yeah,
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and doing it all by myself. So it's I just love like sitting down and meeting people.
Yeah, it's
and
fantastic.
talking about what's the turning point in their life and where they kind of came about doing things.
And you're getting good kind of views?
Yeah. You are officially episode 100.
Okay, fantastic.
So
that's great. Well, that's good.
Yeah, and look, some episodes get better traction than others, but I think everybody has a story to tell, and
just digging it out of them sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, one, digging it out of them, but two, also, I guess, doing it in a way that's relatable for like everybody else.
Yeah, of course.
So Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. So you're Melbourne
born, musician, composer, songwriter, producer, performer.
Yeah.
So, started when I was very, very young. A little 6-year-old boy taking guitar lessons.
Yeah.
And, just went through the whole thing, went through the academic side of it all. And then.
What did your parents want you to become?
Actually, my dad was quite really musical anyway.
Yeah.
So Italian family, Southern Italian family.
Yeah.
And my dad was a tradie. He's gone now, but he was a tradie. But he loved music and had this beautiful voice, like a tenor voice. Never a professional, apart from the fact that apparently, and I'm pretty sure this is true, that Dad used to, because he had this, he had this lovely voice, that they used to use him back in the village to serenade. When someone was serenading their girlfriend. No, this is a true story, right?
Yeah.
So they used to kind of book him. They didn't have money to pay for it. They were really poor. This is kind of, would have been just after the war, I guess, before Dad came to Australia.
Yeah.
So they used to pay him in either cigarettes or wine. And he'd go and so the guy who was courting this girl, it's a bit like Romeo and Juliet, right?
Yeah.
Instead of, because they weren't allowed to kind of speak to each other, he would sing them these beautiful songs and get paid for it. So he had a mandolin. So there was always a guitar and a mandolin in the house since I was a kid, little baby.
Yeah.
And so I was just attracted to that so badly. Since I was a kid, I was just screaming for that guitar.
Yeah.
And I guess, something became ingrained in me. That was my path. So I did the whole academic thing musically, but then I also did 1 year at uni. Because I could draw, and my dad was a tradie, so I used to draw the designs for him and stuff. And I did architecture for a year, but I deferred.
Yeah,
because most of that year I spent in the cafe trying to pick up girls, as you do.
You're not a young bustling Italian boy.
But having said that, I actually got through the year. I deferred, so I actually made it through.
Right,
and so. But by that time, I was playing in bands 4 nights a week.
Yeah, it gets.
I was living the dream.
It was impeding on your academic life,
a little bit,
and you were probably putting 2 and 2 together, going, "There's a lot more reward doing this." Yeah,
I've been doing it for so long by then anyway.
Yeah,
I was doing sessions. I mean, because I could read, because I was classically trained. I was doing like sessions in recording studios when I was in my teens.
Yeah.
And I couldn't drive. My dad used to have to drop me off.
Yeah.
I did some sessions at some of the there was a big studio in Melbourne back in the day in Swan Street, and I got a lot of sessions there.
Yeah.
And, obviously all the guys in the band were much older than I was, and most of them were Channel 9 players or, all these kind of really hot shots.
Yeah.
And Dad would drop me off and I'd walk in with my little amp and my guitar and, I'd sit in front of guitar 1 or guitar 2, because there was usually 2 guitarists on the session, read the charts and play the gig.
What was that like, though? I mean,
amazing.
What's the word? Like the scrutiny that you would have been under, being a young guy, kind of coming in.
Because I was kind of like a bit of a hot shot back then. I guess in the Melbourne scene, there were a handful of guitar players that were just like incredible.
Yeah.
And those guys, most of those guys are still around. And they were doing all the sessions because they just had it all together, man. it was those were the days where there were sessions and you can actually make money. I mean, that's all gone and finished. But yes, the scrutiny was incredible, but I was so lucky because all the older guys that were on the session were so helpful. They were all fantastic. There wasn't this sense of jealousy or ego. No, it's not like that at all. These guys were really, really helpful.
Yeah.
And of course, they knew I was the young guy. I was inexperienced, so that helped me out. And so there's a bit of leeway going on here. You know, but when you're playing, for those that don't really know how it works, especially when you're playing in an ensemble in a recording studio where you've got a rhythm section, drums, bass, you know, 2 guitars sometimes, and then you've got a brass section, sometimes strings, and they play and record. If you make a mistake, sometimes you kind of get away with it.
Yeah.
Right? So at the session, whenever you finish the first take, usually the protocol is that if you screw something up, you're supposed to go, you know, I made a mistake at bar 25, and then they'd roll back and they'd drop you in. This was the days of tape, by the way. It's not digital. But if you didn't put your finger up, we were good. Right? And if no one noticed.
So you didn't put your finger up very often because you're like, oh, well.
Yeah, if the producer or the musical director didn't notice, then we'd be going, that's fine, you know, leave it. So great experience, great learning. And those days also were very important, as opposed to today, where there's not as much opportunity for young musicians to have experiences like that anymore. Yeah. See, because I played in so many shows, backing up so many artists and in so many different gigs, and you just learn the ropes. Whereas these days, that's kind of gone. You know? And so it's a bit harder for young musicians to get those experiences.
Who would have been one of your most like the artist that you worked with that was almost like an idol where you got nervous?
Oh, gee, there's quite a few of them, especially when I was a kid. But I think if I really have to think about it, back in the day, there were quite a few people that I used to, I used to back in the band. I used to play the charts. They used to come out from the US or whatever. Yeah. And there was everyone from, the Supremes, that obviously were Diana Ross's singers, to, gosh almighty, there's so many. The Drifters, the Coasters. Yeah. There was, I could go on forever with these sort of things. Al Martino came out, and I did some shows with him as well. And but I think probably the most important act at that time for me was the Seekers. So you got to remember, this was a long time ago. So they still are huge, of course, but back then they were such a huge group.
Yeah, because they were like up and coming and popular.
They'd already sold probably 50 million albums by then. And I'm talking 20, 30 years ago. When I first got the gig, I got the gig to play with them first because they reformed, not with Judith Durham, but initially they reformed with Julie Anthony to play at the Expo in 1988 in Brisbane. And so I got the gig to play with them. And then after that, as things progressed, I became their musical director. And then, of course, Judith Durham rejoined, and that was like the huge, big world tour. Sold out everywhere, right across Australia, the UK, all that sort of stuff. So we went to England and did Royal Albert Hall and did Wembley Stadium and all that sort of stuff. So playing with those guys was really nerve-wracking in the beginning because they were just so huge and so connected. These are the guys that they knew the Rolling Stones and the Beatles. They used to tell me stories about Abbey Road and stuff like that. So it was my connection to kind of this huge.
And so how old were you then?
Oh, gosh. Well, I would have been in my 20s, early 20s.
Yeah.
And, I thought I'd done so many things up till then, but that was like a big gig.
Yeah.
And, kind of Australian music royalty, all Australians of the year, all this kind of stuff.
And it would have been such a different world back then to how it is now.
Big time, yeah.
Analog,
everything was you're talking about.
And
this is one of the things that helped me with my production skills, of course, is working with, because one of my main gigs is producing other artists, apart from being an artist myself. But one of the things that helped me so much was getting to work with some of the best people in the industry, technically, learning the skills, because obviously the Seekers could command whoever they wanted to work with. And don't forget, they'd come from working in places like Abbey Road, Air Studios in London and all the rest of it. Oh my gosh, I could go on.
Yeah.
They did, I mean, Judith worked with, she was on A&M.
Yeah.
So she did all that kind of stuff as well.
Yep.
So recording them became a real thing for me because I had to try and capture their sound the way they wanted it to, and kind of digital wasn't working for them.
Mm.
So I had to have the right mics and the right equipment, the right preamps and all that sort of stuff. I learned a lot just working with them. And so I've been producing them since 1992. I've done all their albums apart from one. I've done all of Judith's albums since then. And of course, she's gone now. So it's been an incredible experience for me. And I've written songs with them and all that sort of stuff. So it opened a lot of doors for me. And they're part of my family now.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience. And of course, that offshoots to working with so many other people then.
Yeah. Well, once you get that connection, then it kind of like just snowballs into all these other opportunities and all these other doors that open up.
And also because they were like a legit kind of folk band, let's face it. They played real instruments and really sang like that. There was no special effects or magic there. The four of them just got in a room and picked up their guitars and Alpha got his bass and bang, that was the sound.
Yeah.
So there's no kind of we've got Pro Tools and all the rest of it today that we use to kind of manufacture stuff, and we can sit on stuff for days and weeks and hours perfecting things and all that.
Yeah.
That wasn't like that then. Here's the take, guys. If you don't get it the first time, let's do it again. That's it.
Why did you decide to help people produce music as well as play?
I think there's two sides to me. Apart from being a musician and having that kind of artistic bent, I've always loved designing and building things. Since I was a kid, I was building things or taking things apart and then putting them back together again.
That's thanks to your dad,
right?
Being a tradie,
right? Probably.
Yeah.
So
you saw him kind of do stuff, and
model kits. I used to build stuff for school. I mean, I used to design things and kind of just make them. I got Dad to help me make stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess making things, like making a record from the beginning to the end, is kind of that.
Yeah.
That's where it comes from. And I saw Lionel Richie in an interview once, and they were talking about his productions and how he does things. And he said something that really resonated to me because I feel that is quite often when he comes up with a song, he hears it finished in his head. He can hear the finished product, right? And I got that and to him, his whole purpose in life is to try and get as close as he can to that thing he hears.
Yeah.
And I'm the same. If someone presents me with a song or I write something, I can almost hear the way I want it to be in my head. I can hear the sounds of it. I know what the bass is doing. I know what the reverb and delays in the vocal are doing. All this kind of stuff. I can hear the production. Trying to get there, that's the kind of fun.
Is it kind of like having voices in your head that are kind of like, you're like listening to all these things and in your mind it's all being synced up together to create a sound? Yeah, I've always been able to do it. When it comes to arranging and stuff like that, those things come really easily to me. It's not a stressful thing. So when someone does bring a song to me, any artist that might, if I'm working on an album for somebody, and then they've got a song they're working on, quite often, if I haven't written it, it comes to me as a very, very basic sketch. Yeah. And then it's really about putting the colours in. Yeah. And that's the fun bit. Yeah. And that, I don't find that difficult. I get pretty close to what I'm hearing sometimes. Not always, but sometimes, Yeah. Yeah. And that's a lot of fun. I love doing that. And when you're working on your own stuff, it's even more fun because then you've got free reign. No one says. But obviously, you have to. When you're a producer, you try and do the right thing by the act. You don't want to take over. A producer should never be taking over the sound of the. Yeah, yeah. Do you produce your own? Yeah, or absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, always have. Yeah, because I can play everything. So I can play just about every instrument. I'm not really good at things that you need to do that with. I'm not really good at sawing stuff. Like a violin. Yeah, which. Hey, I love the violin, and I work with Michael. It's good to know that you're human and that you can not succeed in one instrument. Right. I'm not really good at that. Yeah, I'm not great at like blowing into the saxophone or the trumpet. That's not, Yeah. But everything else, I can just about. You never thought about doing a collaboration with Kenny G? No, it didn't cross my mind. I don't know why that is.
It could still happen though.
It could still happen. Kenny, if you're out there, reach out.
Yeah, love your stuff, man. Love it.
Imagine where you would be if you continued on doing architecture.
I often think about that, and funnily enough, I caught up with. I don't often catch up with friends from my past or from school.
Yeah, from decades ago.
But this one time, with the power of Facebook, someone found me and reached out. So he went to school with me, and we were both doing the same course, and he went on and became an architect.
Right.
I was like this crazy muso guy. I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
But we caught up again after, and bless his heart, he was gorgeous and everything. But I kind of realised that I didn't want to do that then.
Yeah.
Because he kind of looked a little bit. I don't know. I think he'd been really successful, but I just thought that's not where I wanted to be. I think so. I felt good about that because quite often, yes, you do think that. Especially when things get hard in the music business, because they're not getting any easier. But when things do get difficult,
things are definitely getting difficult now with particularly AI.
Very much so. Everything is in a state of flux, and probably has been for a long time. Actually,
yeah, it's just because it's become more apparent now, more obvious. I think like a lot more. You see a lot more things online. Companies are. And artists are like utilizing all the technology and things like that. I think, I don't know, I guess part of me thinks that it's a good thing. And then the other part of me is like, well, why wouldn't we keep it like in the roots of how it was done, back in the day?
Yeah.
But I'm also optimistic that everything runs in cycles.
It does. You know what? I must say, working in this industry, full time since I was a teenager or even younger, I've seen it all come and go too, and I've never ever been negative about it, and neither will I ever be. A lot of people are, but I'm not, and I think you're right. It is a cyclic thing. It was inevitable that this would happen as technology is moving so quickly.
Yeah.
But having said that, we still, as humans, we still do need things like music, and we do need things like art and culture. That's part of what makes us who we are. So I don't think that will ever disappear. The systems of putting it together or distribute it, I guess, is different.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going through at the moment because it changes the balance of power.
Yeah.
Whereas in the old days, I guess, and when I say the old days, not that long ago, record companies were kind of running everything.
Yeah.
And I love it that people say, well, now that's changed because they don't have the power anymore. And in actual fact, they do. They still do. Nothing's changed.
They probably still have the power. It's just less like in the front door. It's more in the back door.
Right. I think people think, well, anyone can put their songs on Spotify now. So that's not necessarily a good thing either. So
holy shit, this podcast is on Spotify. No, you motherfuckers.
This is great. But that's the thing, right? So it is wonderful that now anyone can create their music and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Of course. That does lead to a few issues with kind of quality control and stuff like that, which is what record labels used to do.
Yeah.
To some extent.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a kind of like a sieve system where you drop it into this bucket and you kind of shake and some of it gets through to the bottom and then there's another system and there's another system. And
yeah.
By the time you get to that, where you've gone through,
it's the hopper, right? Like you put all the song ideas in and then something comes out and that's the one that gets.
Yeah, and so you put them in there and then the next level is, it's a demo. How do we get it done? Let's see if we can get a label to put some money into it. And by that time, if it's good enough for labels to be or other people to be interested in it, the doors start to open. But if it's not good enough, usually the doors close there, and it's all about persistence.
Do you feel though, like back then, it was very much there was a lot of schmoozing going on?
Yeah, there still is though. That hasn't changed.
Yeah,
that hasn't changed. I tell people all the time, a lot of things haven't changed. A lot of things haven't changed. You still need to be able to do it. You still need to, the only thing I do tell people is when I get people calling me all the time I get stuff sent to me all the time. I'm part of a label called Ambition, and I get songs sent. You know, I want to do this, I want to do that. You know, can you give me a record deal? Can you do that? Can you do this? And sometimes the tracks are great, and you call these guys, and I say to them, well, what do you do? Well, I'm a producer. Well, they don't even know what that is. So I say, so what have you produced? And they play this track for me, and really most of it is beats and stuff taken from someone else. So they haven't produced anything. And I say to them, you know, well, do you play an instrument? And they go, no, I don't play anything. Well, you know, I kind of get worried about that straight away, because then they're not coming from any sort of musical bent at all. They're just stealing other people's ideas, really. You know, so that's a bit of a difficult thing, unless you're Eminem or, you know, Dr. Drake or something like that. You know, you're kind of, not many of them are kind of going to excite me.
Yeah.
So I still, and I'm old-fashioned that way, I still like people that can pick up a guitar and sing me a song, or people that can sit at the piano. And you don't have to be Liberace here. I'm talking about just sit at the piano and play me a song. And, you know, that's the kind of stuff that inspires me.
Yeah.
And unless you're into EDM, or if you're a rapper or something like that, that's fair enough. You know, but I still want to see you perform live. I want to see you be able to do it.
Yeah.
That's part of my thing. Any person that's in any position at any record label at some point will want to see a live performance.
I like what you said then before, though, in terms of music will always be around.
Totally, yeah.
The arts will always be around. You know, there's this, and I often say to like either work colleagues or friends about, you know, the whole Einstein thing, and, you know, he was seen as a lunatic, you know, trying to running these experiments, and, you know, he had to run 10,000 experiments to then finally get the evidence to take the papers to his colleagues, and then his colleagues did a peer review and was like, oh shit, that's actually right. So what people thought was art then moved to science and became the law of physics and, you know, all those types of things. It's the same with today's art. Like, you go to an art gallery, and what's one perspective that you would take, someone else would take another perspective.
Totally.
It's all about perspective, right?
Totally. That's what makes it art.
Yeah.
You know?
And then the great thing about music is the fact that it's sound and frequency and vibration.
Yes.
And, you know, I think there'll always be a need for live music or like festivals or things like that.
Yeah, you know,
because when you go back to, you know, caveman days,
right? We had that as well.
We had rituals around the campfire,
right?
And that helped us get through stuff.
That's right. It's really important. And singing is such an important part of who we are as a race.
Yeah,
you know, just that alone. I mean, that's a sound we can make without anything.
Yeah,
that's an amazing thing. And sometimes I think it gets underrated, and sometimes there are shows which I won't mention because I'm not a huge fan of them, but that, you know, that kind of make you feel like you've got to be able to sing a certain way to be a singer, and so you create this kind of thing that's actually not true at all.
Yeah,
you know, so those things, but those shows really, with all due respect, they're all about ratings, and I understand they do go forth with good intent. They're not trying to ruin anything, but it just makes it difficult for some of these young kids to get on these shows or they not get on and have their hearts broken, and that's a difficult thing, you know.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting time at the moment, and with everything that's going on globally, even now, you know, things are shifting again. So it's a funny time.
Things are shifting like in 24 hours.
It's crazy,
you know.
Yeah. And all these things they have this ongoing effect on not only the way music is consumed, because that changes, but then it also has the effect on ticket sales for shows. Yeah. And, you know, it kind of gets us through.
I mean, I saw the other day that Napster got sold for $20 million. It got shut down 20 years ago.
I didn't even know it was still a viable thing.
Exactly. How does it get sold for $20 million if it got shut?
It got shut.
Yeah.
So what are they going to do now?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's
a crazy time.
When I saw that, I was just kind of like, nothing that's shut down should really be able to come back, but for
Agreed.
whatever reason, it's come back.
Well, there must be something we don't know about.
Yeah, which is why I said that statement about everything happens in cycles. Yeah. Like it'll come around again. Like vinyl's back in.
And I love vinyl,
and it has been for a while.
And I love vinyl. I mean, vinyl sells out like crazy.
Yeah.
I still have all my LPs, and I've got a great turntable and cartridge and all that sort of stuff, and I love it. But even in the business, when CDs came in, oh my gosh, everyone was, oh my God, that's the end of it, And then, of course, the moment CDs are becoming cool again now.
Yeah.
Because the audiophiles are starting to realise how much better they sound than MP3s.
Yeah.
So
although I don't think mini discs will come back.
No, I think that's gone.
Yeah, that's definitely gone.
That's not going to happen.
That lasted for about 12 months, and then it disappeared.
Although cassette players, people are buying cassette players again.
Oh, they're really expensive, the retro ones.
And VHS. Apparently VHS is becoming really collectible.
Yeah.
That's
actually, I went out, was it last weekend? Yeah, it was last weekend. And I was out with a mate and a few of his friends, and I was on the dance floor and I was looking at this girl and I'm like, has she got a camcorder?
Oh, really?
She had a camcorder.
A camcorder.
A camcorder on the dance floor. She was like...
with the old little tapes and everything?
Yeah.
Oh, how cool is that?
And I was just like, holy shit. Right. I mean, I've got one over there.
I've got two.
Thanks to my dad. So I was like, damn. What are you going to do with the cassette?
Yeah, right. Oh, my gosh.
Like, how are you going to get it onto a...
Yeah. Well, you can still transfer them, can't you? I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, it'll have that grainy kind of look, but some people love that.
Yeah.
I had a shoot. I've got a mate of mine who's a professional photographer and has been for a long time. And whenever he comes to a shoot, back in the day when I knew him anyway, it had bags and bags and bags of equipment.
Yeah.
He came to my studio.
The story of my life.
Right? Yeah. He came to my studio to do a shoot and he walked in with his iPhone. And he put it on a tripod and he ran it all from his iWatch and shot the whole thing.
Yeah.
I was went, okay, that's what it is.
I do know some photographers that are like that.
I mean, hey.
It works.
Of course. Good on him.
Yeah.
It's got the vibe.
Yeah. And even commercial stuff.
Yeah, very much. A lot of them are shot. And what's that? The movie that's just been shot on?
Yeah.
On a 15 or something, I think it was.
Yeah.
Crazy times.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of years ago, there was that movie, The Creator.
Yes.
And I was amazed because the whole thing with that movie was that it was shot on a Sony FX3, which you can go down to the shop and buy. They didn't use this massive cinema camera and, all the equipment. It's like, shit.
Wow. That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I guess as long as it's clear enough, like everything else, it's all about the content and the composition, isn't it?
Correct.
It's music's the same. That's why I tell people there's these strong parallels, because I always tell people, look, even though you've got the technology and yes, you can do all that, you still need a damn good song.
Yeah.
And you still got to be able to deliver it in your own style that's going to be convincing.
Yeah.
These are only tools. It's like AI. It's if you look at it as a tool, it's a fantastic tool. But it's a tool. It's a thing that helps you do that thing you were doing either more efficiently or better. It's like a great washing machine, Wow, that's going to help me put the clothes in now and I've got more time to be creative. It shouldn't be the other way.
Yeah.
So
the washing machine isn't going to spit out a beat and take over your job.
Don't get scared of it. Use it as a tool, but then don't. What I don't like is when people just press a button and it creates a whole song for them. Well, that's not really using a tool at all. That's something else. And that's where the problem is, and that's where we're having all these issues. There's cases against all these kind of AI companies across the world with all the majors at the moment, because they're basically, AI can only use stuff that's already existing, so they have to steal it from somewhere.
Yeah,
it's gotten to the point where they can't create on their own yet.
I saw a clip today. A guy was in court representing himself, but because he had throat cancer, he had an AI
sure.
lawyer
Right,
kind of
speaking
like
for him.
speaking for him,
Well,
and the judge was like, "Is that person real?" And the judge just like shut it all down.
Yeah.
But the reality is that you can go on AI and get legal advice because it can
That's
look
right.
through
That's right.
all of the records
That's what's
through
amazing
history.
About it. Yeah.
You know,
They've got to be very careful with things like I work at Deakin University as I guess my role would be musical director there because I've been performing at their graduation ceremonies since a long time, over 10 years.
Yeah.
And I do like 25, 26 graduations a year for them. It's been an incredible journey. I love doing it. And so the way it works is, that I have this huge graduation ceremony in Geelong, 1,500 people in this beautiful theatre. And then I do a 20-minute solo classical guitar performance. And then at the end of the graduation, I'd come out with some backing singers and there's a choir and a didgeridoo playing. We do this big number, whatever it is. It could be anything. So I've been doing that for a long time. And I've gotten very close to some of the professors and obviously the faculty there. And they're facing major issues with AI because they've had some issues where some of their major papers, even some of their theses, major papers that have been written for PhDs and stuff, that have found out some of it's been written by AI. So they've had to introduce all this new. Well, universities across the world have had to do it now.
Yep.
It's become a real issue.
Yeah.
But I think that will become less and less as we become more used to using AI, as a tool to help us rather than being worried about that it's going to be Judgment Day Terminator.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So,
Skynet.
yeah, that sort of thing.
I mean, yeah, it's exactly what you said. People are going to use it for good, and then some people are going to use it for bad.
Like anything.
Well, it's like anything.
It's like
That's
anything.
exactly right.
Yeah.
And so it's up to us to make sure that we're continually using it for good and
That's right.
and spreading the good use of it,
Yeah.
as opposed to all the dodgy stuff.
And I was reading something, I don't know how true it is, I guess it is, but that some AI models over in China or something have learned how to lie
Oh yeah,
to protect themselves from being either shut down or whatever.
yeah,
Well, that's part of the thing that's going to, I guess if that's the way you program it, that's what's going to happen.
yeah. And then there was that thing about ChatGPT cloned itself.
That's
because
right.
it got told it was going to be shut
That's
down,
right.
so it cloned itself and put itself on a different
Well, that is
server.
Skynet.
Yeah, that's like, what type of consciousness are we developing
Oh
here?
my gosh, and there's this famous movie which I love, I think it was 1964, called The Forbin Project, and that was about that.
Yeah,
They had two supercomputers, one was in Russia, one was in the US.
yeah,
And of course, as they always do, they gave them control of their military arsenals and then
Yeah.
they joined forces. And right, that's the kind of doomsday idea, but I know people get really.
Are we doomed?
No, I don't.
Are we doomed,
no,
Michael?
I don't think so.
No, you know why? Because music will save us.
Right, and not only music, I think. Yeah, but you're right. Not only music, but photography
But
and
arts.
art and
Yeah.
literature, and oh my gosh, right, ballet. I mean, the opera.
Yeah.
Well,
Expression of yourself through creative means,
Very-
I think,
very
is it's so important. But
Yeah.
it's so important for like spreading a message. It's so important for like healing,
and mental health
mental health.
depends on that.
Yeah.
It's I've got a wonderful friend who's in mental health, and it's all it's all about that.
Yeah.
That's really people are suffering because they're getting less of that coming.
Yeah.
So boy, it's an interesting time, but it's fun.
It presents an opportunity.
Yeah,
And it's an opportunity to leverage what's being done to like create something new, right?
yeah. Well, I'm still creating. I mean, I've got a new album out. It's actually an Italian album, so I'm Italian origin,
Mm.
and I've written hundreds and hundreds of songs in English, and but this opportunity came up. I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to release something, but I just didn't want to release another album
Yeah.
because it kind of gets lost in the mire.
Yeah.
And I thought, what makes me different? What do I have that other people don't have? And so I drew on my culture. I thought that's a cool thing to do, So that's how that came about.
Yeah.
and it's been doing great.
How long has it been out?
It was out November 1st last year,
Okay.
and it's just doing really, really well, picking up all the time and getting on playlists around the world. I've just recorded 2 songs. I sing in Spanish as well, so 2 of the songs will be in Spanish. I haven't released them yet,
Mm-hmm.
But the Italian album's just doing great. And, not so much here. It was designed for Europe and it's getting played not only in Europe, but, they're playing it in New York and LA and huge Italian communities there, Canada, France. And
talk me through the process that you go through to create a new album, particularly one like that.
Well, this one was different because the lyrics were written by a wonderful friend of mine who's a fantastic lyricist, Italian girl called Raffaella Fox, and she had these beautiful romantic lyrics, and I was at a time where I wanted to do something interesting like that, so I wrote all the music for them and put it together, produced it, recorded it, played everything, and sang it all. So that was a kind of a labour of love for me because I kind of enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
And it was also, I was kind of channeling, I lost my dad a few years ago now, and it was kind of channeling my dad a bit. So
sorry about that.
No, thank you. No, he was 86 and had a fantastic life.
Shit. 86
pretty
is
good, eh?
Yeah.
not bad.
I mean, my dad passed away at 64.
Oh, gosh, really? That's really young. Yeah.
But 86 is a good wicket.
Well, he was fantastic, and he wasn't ill or anything. It was just sudden death. He had a wonderful life. But he was probably my biggest supporter as a kid because he was the guy that used to, when I had my first bands, I was 12 or 13, I started my first band with kids from school, and we used to rehearse at this primary school. The keyboard player in the band he was the only guy that had a car because he was 18. So that's why he was in the band.
Hang on. So the keyboard player was 18.
Yeah, but
you were 13?
I was 13 then, yeah. And I had
Mate, you're hanging out with all the older kids.
So he used to drive so he could take the
No
gear.
wonder you had like you've got like a tenacious drive and you've just been continually doing this.
Oh, gosh, yeah. But the story is that my dad used to, so he was a trade. He had this big white van that used to be full of equipment, saws and polishing machines and stuff.
Yeah.
And so on a Sunday when we rehearsed, he used to, because we got permission to rehearse at this school, at this classroom. Had the key and everything. And he used to take all the stuff out of his van and then put my amp in there. It was all dusty and shit,
Yeah.
Put my amp and my guitar and off we go to rehearsal. My dad would wait with me while we rehearsed, and sometimes he would make comments and stuff. And then after rehearsal, he'd take me home. But half the problem was the next morning on a Monday, he'd have to be at work on some construction site.
Yeah.
He would have forgotten his saw or something like that. And he'd be swearing black and blue.
Did he have any musical inkling?
Yeah, I mean, apart just because he was singing, he was a singer, and he loved music, but he didn't. It was never something I think he would have probably liked to.
Yeah,
but the times were different. He came out here in '54.
It's so good that he saw that in you and wanted to
big supporter.
Yeah,
I remember the day when I went to him after I deferred from that course, and we were having dinner, and I said, by then I'd been playing for a long time.
Yeah.
So I said to him, Dad, I'm not going back. He goes, oh, yeah, I know that. He goes, I think you're going to do really well. I said, Dad, thanks.
Hang on. I'm just thinking at that time period, where did your parents become so open-minded with allowing you to...
My mum, bless her heart, she's still around, love her dearly, but she wasn't as supportive, probably because she didn't really understand what I was doing, but also because of the fact that obviously being a musician carried this
stigma
that you're always going to be broke and you're always going to have the ass hanging out of your jeans, right? That's kind of what it was. And, it's the old story, what do you have a real job? It's that... If I had a dollar, if I had $1 for every time I got asked that, but my dad was really the other way, and when I was already writing songs when I was a young kid, and I convinced my dad to buy me this big TIAC reel to reel, it was huge with it, so it was a 4-track, so I could start recording demos and stuff.
Yeah,
and Mum had typical Italian family. You've got a garage, and then there's a room behind the garage where there's another kitchen.
Yeah.
And that's where she does all the cooking.
Yeah.
So Mum stopped using that so I could use that as my studio. And I used to have kids coming over doing demos and stuff when I was...
Wow.
That's how long I've been recording for. I had some microphones and I saved some money up from gigs and Dad gave me some money and, I was doing demos for kids and stuff.
So it sounds like he was just so entrepreneurial in like lots of different facets of his life.
Yeah.
That when he started seeing some stuff from you, he was like, "Let's
Yeah.
support this."
It was all about dedication. I think he saw the dedication and the discipline because I've been I started taking lessons at 6. So, and I was really disciplined that way. So I went through all the Australian Music Examination Board, course. But I was a very young boy. You can remember. I think I sat my first classical guitar exam would have been before I turned 8. I had a little 3/4 classical guitar because I couldn't reach, right? So he's already seen that. I know a lot of kids do start taking lessons and then they fall off because they want to play soccer or but I was always like crazy. I was a crazy kid at school. And when I went to a Catholic school, so I used to, sing at all the, whenever they had a church mass or whatever, I'd be the kid with the classical guitar. I'd be the kid arranging the choir, arranging the guitar bits, painting the posters.
Yeah.
I was that kid.
Yeah, right.
I was kind of a bit like that. And so he saw that.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
I've got two younger brothers.
So you're the oldest.
I'm the oldest. And so my middle brother, his name's Dominic, he's a school teacher. And my other brother, Paul, he's in the car trade. He kind of manages car yards and stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
So not musical. My middle brother's a bit musical, actually. He plays the piano and does that and teaches the kids music, so he's kind of got it.
Yeah.
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 But never took it on professionally.
Yeah, right. I'm just trying to understand or like form this idea of what the home dynamic would have been like, you off doing classical, guitar things.
Practicing in my room.
Practicing in your room and like making all this racket and then your dad being like, let's support him, and your mum being like, where am I going to do the cooking?
Yeah, that's right. It's
and then the other two boys just like running around going, ah.
Yeah, that's right. It was a bit like that, and so, quite often a typical night at the Cristiano household would be Dad would get home from work covered in dust and stuff from work and stuff. He'd have a shower.
Yeah.
Mum would have cooked this incredible dinner. We'd all sit down, have dinner together like we always did. Dad would have a couple of glasses of wine.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he goes, in Italian, he goes, grab the guitar. And I'd grab the guitar and I'd start. And he'd start this, oh, sole mi. He'd start these beautiful songs. And I'd play with him for like an hour together. And if he had an audience, like if we had my aunties or uncles over, forget it. Then it was like full concert, man.
Wow.
He just loved to perform.
Yeah.
That's who my dad was. My dad had more front than I do. I'm actually quite shy, really, compared to Dad. Oh, my gosh. He just wanted to be this rock star.
I could sense a little bit of shyness.
Yeah. I am. I'm quite shy, really.
Or there's not a lot of ego in your energy, I feel.
Gosh, no.
Like, because you know what hard work is and you know what passion is.
You know what I've found? I wonder if you found this in your profession as well, is because people often ask me that, what are they like in the music industry? They have this bad kind of idea of what people are, bad rep. But I found that and I've worked with a lot of the greatest, most of the people that are really good at what they do are really lovely. It's the cowboys that are the ones that have the big ego and the big issues. And I found that. I wonder, have you found that as well?
Yeah, 100%.
Most of the really good guys and girls are great.
Most people are really good. It's like the 10% that give everybody else a bad name.
And they're the ones, and you go, you know what, you're not that good anyway. That's why you got these issues. Right? So, I was lucky to be surrounded by really good people that taught me that you've got to have an ego to do it anyway. Listen, I'm very good friends with and play with Bob Starkey. For you people that don't know, Bob Starkey is the original guitarist from Skyhooks, one of Australia's most influential bands, and were the catalyst, I guess, to mushroom success when Michael Gudinski started. And I play Red Simons in that band, and that just gives you a sense of how and they were very influential, but there's no ego there. You got ego. Like one of their songs is "Ego's not a dirty word," but you have to have an ego to get up on stage. But it has to be controlled when you're off there.
Yeah,
sure. When you get on stage, we're all an actor. All the world's a stage when you're on stage. Let's face it, But when you get off there, just got to be you, man, and it's got to do the hard yards, got to do the work.
Yeah, it is this it's this kind of thing where you have to apply this balancing act between performing and not getting drunk in that own like egotistical like attention.
Don't believe your own publicity.
Yeah, and so
That's what it is.
you know when it's showtime and know when it's not showtime. You know,
Very important. Yeah,
Yeah.
very important. And I've been, because I've been doing this a long time, I reckon I must have signed, I don't know, a dozen more recording contracts with different people, different labels over the years that have promised you the world.
yeah,
And I think I've been very lucky that I've got a thick skin and I've got my feet pretty much firmly planted on the ground.
yeah,
So you take the hits and you go on.
yeah,
This is kind of what I was alluding to before about some of these shows that feature these young kids that aren't really prepared for that, to be let down that way if they don't get through to the next stage of it or whatever. And quite often I've seen that happen. It really is destructive,
mm.
And the reason why that happens is because most of these young performers have not had, like we said before, has not had the background or the opportunity to train themselves and get to the point where they've taken a few hits already and are used to, this is just the music business.
Yeah.
It's like being an actor or something, man. You don't get every role.
It's the ability to pick yourself back up when you get rejected, but also like creating that thick skin, in your craft and in your capabilities. Not from an egotistical point of view, but from a point of view of, okay, like it's not going to happen now, but it's going to happen.
Right.
Like it will happen.
Yeah.
You
have to believe that. People often ask me, what advice can you give my child? She wants to become, or he wants to become a singer or a rock star.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and look, that's fair enough. I get that a lot. And,
yeah.
But quite often when people do ask me that, and I have done master classes in songwriting and things like that, but quite often I'll say, look, here's how it starts. If you actually do have a gift, you actually do have something to say, then the whole thing is really about persistence.
Yeah.
You just don't give up. You got to keep going. If you really feel like you've got something, you just got to go for it. And every time if someone says no, go again.
Yeah. There's that quote: consistency will always beat talent.
Right.
Look, because you can be talented, but if you're drunk to your own talent, then you're going to be lazy.
It's going to stop.
Yeah,
because
you've got to.
It really is that. You know how people say the devil's in the detail? That's absolutely true, but the devil's also in the work.
Yeah.
You've got to have a work ethic.
Yeah.
And this is what I love instilling that in kids. I love saying, don't think that everything's about fame. We've kind of cultivated this whole culture where you can be famous really quickly, whether it be on social media or getting your head on TV doing something stupid or whatever you want to do, That's fine. And it's that 15 minutes of fame thing is really true because after 15 minutes, they don't know who you are, man.
Yeah. You've forgotten about you.
You've left nothing behind that's yours apart from that one thing.
Yeah.
So do the work.
It's the same with with photography. So I would always have photographers coming and asking me, "Oh, how do I take photos like you?" Da, da, da.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, are you shooting every single day?
Right. That's it.
And the answer is always no. I was like, well, you got to be picking up the camera every single day and you got to be shooting every single day because unless you're doing the work, how are you going to get better? I was having a conversation with a photographer mate last night who's in Perth, and he sent me a couple of images and he was like, have a look at this. These two photos are 2 years apart. And he just said, I just really want to thank you for all the advice that you've given me.
So much is improved.
On how much, yeah. And I just said, I'm just sharing what I know. You're the one that's put the work in.
Yeah.
You got to put the work in to get the results.
You do.
And then I even said to him, like, at the end of the day, it's all about quantity, not quality, because quality will improve as you persevere and keep going through it, So And he was just like really chuffed. And then he also said to me from 2 years ago, he had one of the latest cameras and then some life changes happened. So then he had to downgrade, but his quality went up, even though the equipment went backwards. And I said, that's because of the operator.
Right.
It's got nothing to do with the...
A couple of famous quotes and stories and that parallel that exactly. Is one of my favourite guitar players and was a great idol of mine is George Benson. And, he's famous in an interview where people have asked him, how did you ever learn how to play jazz like that? And he said, I played in jazz bands every night for like 10 years. It's the work. So that's where he developed those skills. And then another guy who I really love is Pat Metheny, another great jazz guitar player. And he was telling the story where I think it was a club in Germany. He went to see someone else play and they found out he was there. And so they asked him, can you come up and play? And he's really famous for his tone and his sound. And he said, no, I don't want to do that. I haven't got my guitar, haven't got my amp. He was really stressed about it. Now, guitar players do, if you don't have your gear.
Yeah.
Anyway, he got up and played and he did what he did. And he was really worried it didn't sound like him. But of course, someone made a tape of it and it played it back and he heard it and he goes, just sounds like me.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Because throughout the work, you start to develop your own style. Your own personality starts to come out. Yeah. That's when you start doing something special. Yeah. Because that's when you become you.
And it's also this piece around the other elements that come to play when you're doing the work, right? So when you're going to a jazz band night every single night, it's the people interactions. It's the dealing with the people, the crowd, like you're learning about yourself and
that's right.
Learning about how to manage your performance based on, one for a better word, the mood that you're in that day, right? Like if you, I don't know, crashed a car or whatever, I don't know why you'd go to a jazz night that night anyway, but let's just say you did that.
Get an Uber.
You like you're in a fluster, but like you have to perform.
Yeah.
And so it's all of this muscle memory that has to come through. It's exactly the same with photography and shooting, like I've got mates who are always like, oh, don't you get really bored going to the same beach, or don't you get really bored like shooting at your house? And I'm like, no, because I know every single angle. I know every single natural light, time of day,
That's
like
right.
I know everything. Yeah. The variable is the person.
Yeah.
And it's how I'm going to interact with the person to make sure I get the best out of them. And, sometimes I'll have to like do something different or, apply the same method that I did like yesterday or whatever, but that's how you learn.
Yeah.
And that's how you, I think, get to ultimate mastery of
what
like
you
your
do.
craft.
We're very similar that way because you work with subjects, right? And when I'm producing, I work with musicians. Are usually pretty cool, pretty easy to work with, but singers, it's a totally different thing. That's like having a subject in a photo.
Yeah,
because if you can imagine putting a singer into a room and you're behind a glass pane, that's you're in the control room.
Yep.
And so they're isolated in front of this microphone with their headphones on, and they hear their voice in their headphones, and then they're not used to hearing that, and it's quite clinical. And especially if there's other people in the room with me, there might be, the guy from the label in there or whoever, the composer or the conductor, whoever's done the, there's like 4 people behind this glass, and you're on your own, and you sing, and then it stops, and you can't hear what they're saying.
Yeah,
it freaks people out.
Yeah.
It's a bit like you as a photographer trying to get someone relaxed so they can just be themselves. That must be the hardest thing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's so hard.
Right. And so a part of my job, and I'm really well known for that, because I'm known for my vocal recordings, is to make the person feel safe. It's quite an intimate relationship when you're recording a vocalist, and so you've got to make them feel safe, comfortable, not at any point never make them feel embarrassed or whatever. And sometimes that takes like an hour. The pros are much better at it. It's like, I guess, if you work with models, they're better at it. They know how to do it. But sometimes, and even some of the most famous singers I've worked with, huge singers, international singers, it takes a while to put them in that place before you can, get that performance.
I think that's so true, right?
Yeah.
You got to make them feel safe.
Yeah.
Because if they feel
They're scared.
safe, they put their guards down and they open up.
Yeah.
And they open up to, what they're there to do.
Well, I mean, you're this pro photographer with all the gear and everything.
Yeah.
And they've rocked up, and the first thing they're going to think is, oh my God, I'm going to look crap. Or geez, I feel overweight today, or whatever. Or,
Yeah.
Right? And
I've heard it all.
you're not seeing that. You're seeing
Yeah.
something totally different.
Yeah.
How do I like this? How do I do that? Blah, blah, blah. But they're not seeing that.
Yeah.
They're just stressing about it. So you've got to make them feel that you're confident in them and that they're not embarrassed in front of you, because that's what it is.
Look, what I tell people is you've lived in your body your whole life. So you know what you like and what you don't like, and you know like all the different traumas that you've gone through. And I say to them, and that's okay. But today, this is the first time I'm seeing you.
Yeah, that's great.
And I show you the photos and I said, look at this. All I see is beauty here. And they're like, oh. And then like the penny drops and then we can just like move on.
Okay. That's a skill in itself,
Yeah.
Because I've been in recording sessions around the world where so-called producers don't even do that. They just put a singer in a booth and they open their mouth and they sing, and I'm sitting there going, that just is so lifeless.
Yeah.
Because they're a bit nervous and they're a bit scared and they don't really know
Yeah.
all the things that make them feel nervous about it, So that's a skill. And I've worked with great producers too, and I've seen how they do that. And that's what they do. Make them feel comfortable first. Don't make them feel like they're on the clock all the time and, or mate, let's finish it because I'm meeting my girlfriend at 2:00. Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
Yeah.
That's not creative.
Yeah.
It might be true.
Yeah. Yeah. It probably is true.
But then you might have to say, listen, if we don't get it today, we'll get it tomorrow, or whatever it is, to kind of pacify that situation so you can get the result. It's all about getting the result.
Yeah, that's
when you're a
exactly
photographer,
right.
when you're a producer, it's the same thing.
That's exactly right.
Because the artist, they just, at the end of the day, they just want to hear the final thing and go, oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
They want to see the photo and go, oh, I look gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
It's the same.
Well, the standard response is, that's not me. When I show them the photo on the back of the camera, and they'll be like, well, it's not me because I don't look like that.
Right, yeah.
And they're like, oh.
And that's what it's about, right?
That's what it's about. Yeah. It's interesting that you bring up the whole nerves thing, because it's the same biological like processes in your body that create nervousness and excitement.
Same, yes.
It's the exact same.
Yes.
And so being able to control that and understand the difference between the two is kind of, when you're in the moment, it's hard for the person to go, what am I feeling? What am I feeling?
Yeah.
It's that whole flight versus fight.
You do need to have a bit of an edge. You do need to feel a bit edgy.
Yeah.
Before you do anything like that, I think.
Yeah.
Because you want to feel like you're doing something important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you don't want to be indifferent, because then if you're so cool and you're so calm, you think, baby, I've got this, I'm hot. Right, I'm going to just sit in front of the camera and just be like gorgeous.
What do you mean, Michael? That's how I wake up every morning.
Yeah, me too. Right, but
when I had my dark locks, which they're coming back.
Yeah, because you're so hot, right?
Yeah.
But I think you need, the performers do. I know you do. Actors do. They're at their best when they're a little bit edgy. And again, they've got directors. They've got I've got bloody directors here and producers here, and the guy that's paying the money and the caterer and the guy over there, right? And I've got to do some scene.
Yeah.
You don't want to feel like you're just. You've got a bit of an edge.
Do you still get nervous?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. You know what, though? I'm very lucky. I've had such great training because a couple of things. First of all, I was in a show band when I was very young, and we were booked to do a season at Launceston Casino. I was a very young boy, before I had my license even. And so I think back in the day that you used to have to do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights.
Yeah.
Now, Friday, Saturday, they used to bring in an international act. But on the Tuesday, and you've got to start, they had he was a German guy, lovely guy, but he used to run it like clockwork, right? And 8 o'clock, it was a bit like Las Vegas. The curtains were down on in the showroom, and then at 8 o'clock on the dot, the curtains rise and we start. It doesn't matter if there was anyone in the room or not.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10 for that season, on a Tuesday night, there was no one in the room. So I was playing to nobody. So that was a first great learning experience, just doing that. But the other thing that really helped me in terms of my nerves and not getting worried about whether there's people in a room or not is that walking out in front of an audience of like 2,000 people and all you've got on stage is a stool and I walk out with a classical guitar and I sit down and it's silence. You can hear a pin drop, right? And I'm not singing. I'm just playing, and you've got to entertain them just with that. That's been an incredible mental exercise for me to prepare myself mentally so you don't get nervous. You always make mistakes. Everyone does. But, if you start stressing about it, you can't do it.
Yeah, you just work through the mistakes, right?
And if you concentrate too much about someone that's looking at you that looks bored, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Right? You can't do that. You just got to you do what you do. Don't worry about the girl that's looking at her phone on the right.
Get off your phone.
Oh, gosh.
I think it's so true though. It's that the mental training that you went through at such a young age.
The discipline,
creates this discipline and these the knowledge of how you operate as an individual, and again, I think it's the same with doing the work. When you do the work, when you know that you don't want to do the work, that's when you need to do the work because that's the mental challenge.
Yes, that's it.
That's the mental challenge to prove to yourself that, you know what? No, you do have this muscle memory of how to play the guitar or take photos or, do ballet or do performances and all this type of stuff.
That's such an important thing because from when you look at it from that point of view, you're not going out. There's no flashy lights or backdrops or dancers or you haven't got shiny shoes on or anything like, there's nothing. The audience is really listening to you perform this piece. It's like if you're a classical pianist or whatever, it's the same sort of thing. If you can dress the stage up with all this other stuff, it's great. Then people's attention is drawn to all this other stuff,
Yeah.
So that's a great mental exercise to learn how to do that because it's not an easy thing to do. And so that's taught me how to deal with my nerves, but you still get edgy. And things do happen during the performance that you just go, something happened to the guitar, one string might be about to break so it goes out of tune or something and you've got to kind of work things around and like I say.
Does that happen often?
Not often, but sometimes it has.
What did you have to do like in that moment?
Well, in that moment, if you can't tune the string back up again, then you avoid it.
Yeah, right.
And hopefully you're towards the end of your set so you can get off. Otherwise, I've never had to do this, but I have seen guitarists just have to say, look, I'm sorry, I've just got to change a string. Quite often they'll have a spare guitar, which I do, and someone will bring it out, and that's okay.
I can imagine you'd have like thousands of guitars.
I've got lots of guitars. I've got lots of guitars. I think at last count, I actually had something like 67 guitars.
Holy shit.
I've got 2 mandolins. I've got a banjo as well. I mean, as a producer, you quite often use different sounds for different things.
Yeah.
So, I've got lots of different guitars that I use for different sounds, but you just collect stuff.
What's your favorite instrument to play?
Guitar-wise? I've got a couple. My favourite is I've got a beautiful Spanish classical guitar that I absolutely love, and I love playing that. And I've got lots of electric guitars that I love. I've been playing Gibson guitars for you guys that know about guitars for a long, long time. So I've got an old Les Paul and I've got a 335, which I've absolutely loved. I don't know all of them, but they're my favourites, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, And when I do the Skyhooks thing, I quite often use Paul Reed Smith American guitar that I really love as well. It depends on the vibe you're in,
My stepdad, I'm actually I'll message my mum after this because my stepdad, I remember when I was living in Perth and then I moved here, he was like, oh, Skyhooks this, Skyhooks that. I was like,
Oh, man. Where is it? Is he in Perth?
No. They live in the UK.
Oh, that's a shame. Because I would have got him to come to a show because I think we're doing something. Bob Starkey has incredible person actually because he was diagnosed with leukemia a few months ago.
Right.
quite suddenly, and had to blow all these shows out. But typical Bob, he's recovered incredibly well, and he's already booking shows. He's nuts. He's crazy. I love him. So we're gonna do
Tenacious.
a couple of Skyhooks things for the fans out there.
Yeah.
You know, lots of Skyhooks fans still.
Where's your favourite city to play in the world?
I really loved. I think two of my most memorable concerts was, first of all, Royal Albert Hall in London.
Yeah.
Because it was memorable in a lot of ways. Because A, it was the Royal Albert Hall. B, the first night I played there with the Seekers was my birthday, and I had my own dressing. They used to give me my own dressing room there with a big sign, a big star on it. You know, Cristiano, musical director, kind of thing. That was amazing. I'll never forget that experience.
Your dad go then?
No, my dad didn't go to the UK, unfortunately. But he came to some of the shows in Melbourne.
Yeah, okay.
But the other one was in 1998, I wrote, with my friend Donna Fisk, we wrote the AFL footy song for Channel 7.
Yeah.
Which went to air every night before every game. And consequently, we got asked to do the grand final with that song.
Mm-hmm.
So we did the grand final in 98 in front of 100,000 people at the G. And that's probably my next most memorable experience.
Wow.
That was pretty cool. Doing your own song at the G. I mean, a lot of people go and do covers, obviously. So.
Yeah.
But that was fantastic. And that was the year they had Muhammad Ali out. So that was all going on. Oh, my gosh, right? It was fantastic. What an experience.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was fun.
Challenges. What type of challenges have you kind of come across?
In the business?
Musically, personally, like that you've overcome?
You know, I think I've been blessed because I've had such a wonderful home life. So losing Dad was a big issue for me. But
he was such a huge supporter.
He was a huge supporter. The one thing I can say is that, as opposed to a lot of other people that lose parents, is that Dad and I were really close. And I always used to tell him, you know, how much I loved him and appreciated him. My mum as well. So I had a great relationship with my dad. Fantastic. So when he passed, it's not like I was left with all this kind of bad vibes or anything. You know, people quite often have to go and seek therapy because they're kind of getting over some sort of issue they had with their parents or something.
Yeah.
Never had that.
Yeah.
And also because Dad didn't suffer or anything, I was very, very lucky that way. As much as it was terrible for Mum and the family because he passed so suddenly. So that was something I had to get over, but it was not like it affected me in a way that it killed me because I had such a wonderful relationship with him, and
yeah,
you know what I mean? It was kind of it felt cool. I felt cool about it.
Yeah.
My mum's not well, and she's 88, and that's become another issue. So, and that's me being the oldest son, typical Italian family. It kind of befalls on me to take the responsibility, look after her, even though my brothers are great. They're doing a great job. But you still feel that, and you can't help that affecting your creative space sometimes. You know, so those things have become a challenge, I must say.
Yeah.
And then trying to navigate all the changes that are happening in the music business. And I mentioned to you before off air that we're unfortunately in an industry that is depreciating somewhat. So struggling, the budgets are not there for albums anymore. You know, people will approach me to produce an album for them, and they want a symphony orchestra and all that kind of sound on it, but you know, they don't want to pay any money for it.
Yeah.
It's kind of that going on.
Yeah. I guess just back to the family aspect, like it's kind of satisfying knowing that, you know, for someone that has been so successful, you still have like day-to-day challenges like that.
Of course we do. We all do.
You know, like we're all human.
We all do.
In this journey called life.
Yeah.
And you know, it's hard sometimes for all those like struggling musicians or artists out there that
I feel for them.
would go through similar things.
Yeah.
You know, like everybody goes through it.
Of course you do.
You just have to be kind to yourself. And,
you do. It's very important. I mean, I'm a big believer in. I'm really into health and fitness. So, I work out, exercise, go to the gym, do that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't do that just because I want to. of course, you want to keep fit and look good, but it's just not about that. It's about what it does for me mentally.
Yeah.
That's what it does.
Yeah.
It's the great de-stressor of all time. And also, I feel like it kind of aligns the particles in my brain so much more focused.
Yeah.
You know, exercise can do that. I mean, that's proven. It's scientifically proven it does do that. So that's been a very important part of my life. But that kind of runs with the fact that I'm kind of a disciplined person anyway.
Yeah.
It gives some people the shits, right? Because God, get over it, right? But that's kind of who I am.
I always get the question, who the fuck are you?
Yeah, right.
Like, how are you doing so much things?
Yeah.
I'm like, I actually have quite a bit of downtime, but like they don't see that. They just see what they want to see.
That's right. That's true.
But
it is hard work. It's not easy. I mean, getting up at 5:30 in the morning to be at the gym at 6 before you even start working. I mean, that's, and I've been there earlier than that too.
It's such a good practice.
Got to do it,
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you've got to fit in all this other stuff, your life stuff, your mum, my brothers, all that, and then kind of manage your career.
Yeah.
And the emails that are coming through from people and this and oh my gosh, it's just.
Have you started doing ice baths?
No. I have not started doing ice baths.
You need to get onto that.
Everyone's told me about it.
You need to get onto that. And before you do your training.
Right, great.
So first thing in the morning.
I'll think about that.
Yeah, I've got an ice bath out there on the balcony. When I was doing it, you're only supposed to do 3 minutes. 3 minutes for maximum benefit, right? I think I got up to like 12 minutes once.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Right? In order to get maximum benefit across a week, you only really need to do 15 minutes, right? Cumulative.
Over a week.
Yeah, over a week.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, like when, I did this once for like 5 minutes, I came out, it was literally like my skin was on drugs.
Wow.
There was a party happening on my skin.
Yep.
And it was just tingling like all over.
Mm.
And then you go to the gym and you can just like smash it out even harder.
Yeah. There's a couple of people I know that do it and they swear by it. I have not done it. That's not to say I won't do it. But so you just buy what? Bags of ice and just
That's the annoying part because you can buy bags of ice.
Yeah.
Like you can buy the water cooler and the shelter and all that type of stuff, or you just go to the beach.
Yep.
I
know the beach will
do it there. Yeah. Like
you're not too far here, are you?
Yeah. So I guess like in terms of challenges and what are you working on like for the rest of the year?
Oh, well, I've just finished 2 of the Spanish songs.
Yeah.
Which have been so much fun to do that. So they're going to be coming out soon. But then, of course, there's another album in the works that I've kind of started working on.
Yeah.
It's only early stages at this stage. And that'll be another Italian album. But, I've got plans to do. I've got an album of some of my English lyrics that I want to record at some point.
Yeah.
Down the track.
Do you, because I've had a few musicians on and they've all kind of told me a different way in which they kind of like come up with their music. What's your approach? Do you dedicate a certain amount of time a week? Or
I don't dedicate time. I mean, because I do it every single day. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, every single day I'm either in the studio, and if I'm not in the studio, I'm writing. And if I'm not writing, it's always something to do with music.
Working with someone else's stuff.
Yeah, or practicing on my own.
Yeah,
so, I try and get an hour of practicing at least every day if I can.
Yeah.
But the process is different every time. Sometimes the inspiration will come from a lyric, something I've read in the book, something I've seen on a poster. And so then that becomes more of a lyrical idea, and I might come up with a chorus for that. And then that chorus, the way that chorus reads, phrases might give me a vibe about what kind of rhythm track it should be, whether it's kind of up-tempo or a ballad, and then you start thinking about the musical ideas, and and then you start thinking about all the stuff where you don't want to make it too complex so people don't get it, but you still want it to have a certain sense of sophistication about it. Then you get all that stuff going on.
Whilst also being authentic to your own personality, right?
Yeah. And look, all music is derivative anyway. There's only 12 notes in the Western scale. So
What? What do you mean?
Yeah, no, right. There's only 12. I know you think there's 8, but there's 12. There really is. And
I
so,
thought there was more than 12.
right? Many people say that. Really? Yeah, really. So you can't. Everything you write, everything you create, really is drawn. You draw upon everything you've heard.
Yeah.
Since everything that's in the brain that's gone in there.
Yeah.
From Elvis Presley to Johnny Cash, to, like I said, George Benson, to Pat Metheny, to Toto, to Earth, Wind and Fire, to Lady Gaga, to Bruno Mars. Everything you hear, something kind of sticks in there,
Yeah.
and some of these things come out. You can't really be totally original because it's already been done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're kind of drawing on stuff, and that's what art is about, really. You kind of, you through all that, I should say, you find your own style. We were talking about it before.
Do you find that you will listen to a song and you'd be like, oh, I know how they did that?
Yeah, I tell you, all the time.
Or like,
All the
because
time.
you fine-tuned your hearing and you can like pick it up.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of my friends freak out because I hardly ever listen to music in the car.
Right.
That's my silent time.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you're a podcast guy. In the car.
That's what it is. I do listen to talk though. I don't mind that. But because I listen to music nearly every waking moment. It's, even
so
the
it's
gym, they're
quiet.
pumping music out,
Oh, mate, some of the crap that
I
they
know,
pump
right?
out.
Oh my gosh.
Just turn it off.
So sometimes I get in the car and I just want to hear the sound of the engine. Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Just silence,
You'd be a motorbike guy though, right?
Oh, I love motorbike. I don't ride though, but I do love bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I do love bikes. But and your cars, you're kind of just quiet time.
Yeah.
Let your brain reset. Because otherwise, sometimes you spend endless hours working on a track, sitting in front of the speakers, in front of the recording console, and fine tuning tiny things, and you find it really hard to listen to music as an enjoyable thing.
Because it's your work.
You start critiquing everything.
Yeah.
And
How do you go about like turning that off?
it takes me a while to do that, but I can.
Yeah.
Now I've learned how to do it now, so I can enjoy stuff a little bit differently. And like vinyls, that's why I love vinyl. I guess it's because the whole process of taking the album out of the cover and turning it over and reading who's produced and who played on it. That whole thing, and then putting it on the turntable.
Do you find this may be a rhetorical question, but do you find that when you look at who produced it, you automatically have a view of what it's going to be like before
of course.
listening to the song?
Yeah. If I know the producers, sure. Every producer
That's
has,
so cool.
I know, have their own vibe. I guess photographers are the same, right?
Yeah.
You can see the styles in some of the great ones, especially, are really known for their styles, aren't they?
I get a lot of inspiration from photographers in Europe, Russia, and America, the US. And so what I'll do is I'll look at their images and I'll be like, okay, how do they do that? Where are the light sources? What type of techniques have they used? And try to like mimic, certain elements into the stuff that I do.
Yeah.
But I think once you get to that point where you're critiquing like your peers or people that you don't even know, like you've reached a certain level of, mastery or knowledge.
Well, that's what we all try and do.
Yeah.
In a way, unfortunately, sometimes these things they can only quantify those things by A, the amount of sales, or B, nowadays it's the amount of views. Like I'm finding this is what's happening in the industry at the moment, is that I shouldn't say all, but most of the booking agents and talent scouts and all that they're booking people with their eyes. And what I mean by doing that is they look at their Spotify views or their YouTube views. And it doesn't matter what it is. They haven't even heard the song. They don't even care. But if you've got 1 million views or 500,000 views, they're going to go, wow, he must be hot. Let's book him.
Yeah, right.
You're kind of listening with your eyes. You're not listening with your ears anymore.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot so it's happening definitely in the music business where if you've got 5 acts that are in line to get booked on a show, they're going to go with the ones that have the most streams.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
I mean, that kind of happened back in the day with record sales.
It did.
It was all about the stats.
Yeah. But in those days, you couldn't really look those up.
Yeah.
Whereas these days, they're just, I mean, I think Spotify would have been better off not having that available to people.
Yeah.
Just let people make a judgment on the. You're still going to be great if you're great. It's not going to change anything.
Yeah.
But it's going to make people listen to you rather than just, if you're going through a Spotify playlist and you see something that no one's listened to, you're probably going to not listen to it. It changes your perception of what it should be or what it's going to be.
It's I heard something this morning about like when you create something, like you shouldn't. I guess it's a little bit about this quality versus quantity. Focus on quantity, the quality will take care of itself because the market will regulate it.
Agreed.
They'll self-regulate.
Yeah.
The market will tell you what it likes and what it doesn't like.
Agreed.
And so when you have available data or available stats, it kind of skews things because it'll just push the popular as opposed to what the market actually likes.
Yeah. A little bit happens in, it's the same thing kind of happens in the recording industry these days. Because everything's now moved to computer recording and they have visual indicators of everything, every level, every sound, every EQ thing. Kids, I try and tell these young people that are recording in their bedrooms and stuff, just you really got to trust your ears. Don't worry too much about what the computer's saying. Or if something goes in the red, if it doesn't sound terrible, then don't worry about that it's going in the red. Quite often they'll go and re-record it. Oh, we can't release it because it went in the red for like 1 second. Well, play it to me. I can't hear it. So are you recording with your ears or are you recording with your eyes? There's two different things. That's, it's so the vocal sounds distorted. Oh my God, how many number one songs have got a distorted vocal on it? Is there a great performance? If it doesn't sound horribly terrible, if there's not a major mistake and it sounds good, then maybe you've discovered a new thing.
That's interesting, right? Like are you listening with your eyes or are you listening with your ears?
The Beatles didn't do that. They wanted to screw things up. They wanted to make it sound distorted.
Yeah, they did.
That's what they did.
Because they were like pushing a different wave of music, right?
They didn't know about the technical side of it. I mean, they learned it after. Yeah. Especially Paul was great at recording and stuff. But they just wanted to make something sound, how do I make it sound weird? How do I make it sound orange?
Yeah. I was going to ask, so with sound, can your ears play tricks on you?
All the time. All the time.
Right.
That's why as engineers, as producers, you always need good points of reference to reset your mind so you don't get too carried away down one thing.
Yeah.
Or quite often you can get caught up.
It's kind of this is so random. It's kind of like when you go and buy new cologne or perfume. They've always got like a little tub of coffee beans.
Oh yeah, of course, that's right.
Right, to recalibrate.
That's really important.
Yeah.
Otherwise you lose your way a bit.
Yeah. I do often tell photographers that our eyes play tricks on us when we take photos because our eyes don't see all of the light spectrum. The camera can. You can dial things down and dial things up. So with natural light, if a room to your natural eye doesn't look great, it's actually going to probably look fantastic.
Yeah.
Because you get all the shades.
Yeah, so but you know that. That's the thing, right? I mean, that's what makes it, that's why you're good at what you do. You've got to have that knowledge. And I know after working on thousands and thousands and thousands of tracks, I do know if I'm working on something and I feel like I'm losing my way a bit, I know to stop because that means my ears need a rest. And, your ears change, your hearing change, your perception changes depending on what you alluded to before, depending on what's happened to you that day. You might
important.
You might have stacked your car.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden your stress levels, cortisone levels have changed.
Yeah.
It kind of affects the way you perceive things when you hear things.
Yeah.
It certainly will affect if you sing or perform, those sort of things. It's like I was talking about Pat Metheny before, the famous guitarist. He never eats before a show. Does not eat any food because he reckons it changes the way he plays. Hey, I get it. Right? I understand that. If that's what it is,
I mean,
It's like those famous soccer players that, will not have sex the night before a game because it's the same. It throws their whole thing.
yeah,
Or some-
because
or
they
some do.
need the testosterone.
Or some do, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever it is.
Yeah, well, it's like Michael Jordan, right? When I was obsessed with basketball, Michael Jordan, like the night before a game, he had the same meal
Right,
every single.
You don't change.
It doesn't change
Because if you lose, then that's the thing. It's your luck, right? The whole,
Yeah.
It's kind of superstitious.
It's superstitious, but also it is interesting how much we are creatures of habit.
Very much.
And
Yeah.
it's like, we will do particular behaviors and do particular things because we know that if we don't, we're not going to get the best outcome, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. And if you are a bit superstitious, then you think that if you do change something and something doesn't work that day, that's because of that. And that's my Italian upbringing, right? I'm sorry, I can't help that. That's the truth. That's my mum is still very like that. Typical Southern Italian where she really believes in that kind of stuff and the evil eye and all that sort of thing. It's quite fascinating.
Yeah.
The stuff they carry with them from probably, I don't know, thousands of years maybe. Since the Roman days where they used to put curses on people and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been what's the word? Presented with a lot of that information in the last 6 months.
Have you?
Yeah, and I'm just like, ah.
Oh yeah, we've got this thing. My parents are from Calabria, which is in southern Italy, and so the evil eye thing's quite well known in movies and literature and stuff. But if someone had if they believed someone had cast the evil eye on you, my auntie who's now gone, she used to have this power that she could remove it. Right? She said that's whole process.
Yeah, it is a whole process.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
How do you can't? It's like I guess it's like religion and faith. You can't really argue that. It's so ingrained in there.
It came from somewhere.
Came from somewhere. Yeah. I have a healthy respect for that, so I have no.
Yeah, I think. Look, who really knows?
No one does.
At the end of the day,
No.
I think as long as it gives people some sort of a direction or gives them a sense of purpose,
Yeah.
then that's
And
that's
sometimes
great.
and sometimes peace and all the other things that come from that. I mean, I think it's great. I mean, I have a healthy respect for people and all that.
Yeah.
I don't judge anybody, never have. And
Yeah.
and because I've been very lucky in my life to have worked with so many different people from different walks of life. I was really lucky to do that. I have this great story. I hope I can tell it on air. But where when I was a very young boy, I wasn't driving, and I answered an ad to play in a band that I saw because it looked really interesting, right?
Yeah.
And they wanted a singer, guitarist, and they mentioned all the kind of styles they played, which I loved. And my dad took me to this place in Gertrude Street, St Kilda. I reckon I would have been 15. And we had the amp and the guitar in the back. And it's now gone. This place, I think, is apartments. But at the time, it was this pretty well-known rehearsal room.
Yeah.
And we parked the van in the front. And lucky Dad came with me, and it was pretty dodgy in there. And I walked in, and you could just smell the dope, right? It was just one of those. And I walked into rehearsal room 2 or something, and there's all these old guys, older than me, obviously. They're probably in their 30s.
Yeah.
And this big black American dude, right? Huge guy, like 6'5". And he goes, "Hi, I'm Dale, whatever." And we got introduced. and he said, "You're a guitar player?" I said, "Yeah." So,
Dale.
Right? And so we started playing, and we got on really well. My dad really liked him.
Yeah.
He connected with my dad, and my dad was really interested in where he came from, Chicago or something. He was really interested in his past.
Yeah.
So much so that my dad says to him, this is probably the second rehearsal. We never did a gig, by the way, but we rehearsed.
Yeah.
And he said to him, "Look, why don't you come?" My mum was called Rosa, or Maria, but they call her Rosa.
Yeah.
"Why don't you come to Rosa's place?" And because he used to talk perfect English, "Come to Rosa's place, she'll cook you up this big Italian dinner."
Yeah.
I go, "Yeah, well, okay, man. Yeah, let's go. Let's do it, So he comes over on a Saturday night. Mum, yeah, listen to this. Mum's cooked him like lasagna, and I think she had like this incredible chicken dish she does, and eggplant parmesan, all this incredible food, and
Wow.
her drinking wines and stuff. And my dad's got a little bit pissed by now, and Dale's having a fantastic time. And Dad said, "Yeah, forgive me," but Dad said, for a nigger, you're a pretty nice guy.
Oh, mate.
And I nearly died because even back then it was really uncool. But he was fine. He just laughed his head off. And, you know, getting to meet people like that is an example. And I could tell there's so many stories of how rich my life has been that way, meeting so many people, so many walks of life. And we all have this one thing in common is that we can either play or sing. We have this understanding, that language that we can talk.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a connection.
Yeah.
So, you know, I accept everyone. I mean, I think Dale might have even been Muslim. I'm not sure back then, but that was something we didn't know about.
Yeah.
Back then, you know.
Yeah, I think it's like I'm the same. Like I grew up overseas. My mum's Indonesian. My dad was Australian. We grew up in Southeast Asia. I moved to Perth when I was 14, and didn't really know where I fit in, but like it just allowed me to be able to talk to absolutely anybody and everybody, and and again cultivate this ability to make people feel safe. Yeah, you know, so that they can open up and allow me to take great photos of them or like just call on conversations, you know.
So let me ask you, have you ever had a photographic session where you couldn't actually get the shot you wanted because your subject was just too nervous or couldn't relax or?
Only a couple of times.
Yeah, me too. It's happened to me as well.
But mainly because they were not sober.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's an issue.
It's very hard.
Yeah, it's an issue.
How do you, like...
when you've had a few drinks.
Control someone's face when they've, you know... and I had this one client who, she definitely did not come sober, and I tried my best. I absolutely tried my best. She absolutely loved the photos. She came back 4 more times.
Wow.
Right.
Was she straight the other time?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. Like more and more straight, right? And then after the 5th time, so 6 months goes past, and then this random message from her, and she says to me, just want to let you know that every single time I use your photos, my business goes up.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's wonderful. That's what you want.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, and look, the reason I pursued photography was because my mum and my sister were such great role models in my life that I really just wanted to give back, you know.
Fantastic. Well, that's a great reason to do it.
Yeah, and there's so much pressure on women. There was so much pressure on everybody, but particularly women in getting them to look a certain way and all this type of stuff. And all I'm doing is I'm showing them a different perspective.
Yes.
You know, and if anybody has any questions whatsoever, ask me or ask any of the people that I post. And, you know,
Again, parallels. Because, you know, you're working in a field too where people have this preconception now of what they want to look like because of this body image thing we've portrayed. And I work in a field where especially singers, young singers, inexperienced, want to sound like Bruno Mars or want to sound like whoever it is they want to sound like. Yeah. But they can't do it because they're not them. Yeah. And they think they expect the producer or someone to be able to draw that out of them, but you can't do that. Yeah. You can only do what you can do. And But what you can do is find what they're great at, and then that's their thing. You don't want to be someone else that's already been done. And so I guess it's the same. I mean, if you don't look like a supermodel, well, you can't expect your photos to look like a supermodel. You're going to look like you. Yeah.
I mean, look, I can make you look like a supermodel. I can do the body warping and all that.
But
I don't like it.
No, of course.
And I've only really done that maybe once.
But it's not them. I mean, I can tune vocals as well. I can make no one that can sing like crap. I can make you sound like you can sing. Yeah. But then it's not you. Yeah. And if someone says, "Hey, Kevin, that sounds awesome. Do you want to come and play at my barbecue?" Right? It's not going to work.
Kevin. You don't sound like that, Kevin.
Or Tristan. I'm just not using any names that might get in trouble here.
Yeah. It's so true though. Like your authenticity will be called out if it doesn't resonate with people.
Yeah.
Like if they can see that there's a disconnect
Yeah, they'll get straight away. Lose it.
people aren't stupid.
Yeah, you lose it. I think a lot of artists they walk out in front of an audience and think that they are.
Yeah.
You can't do that because they're not.
Yeah.
You can't walk out and think they don't know what I'm doing. You know, I see a lot of jazz players, quite advanced players, and even some classical players who are seriously trained.
Yeah.
And they have this kind of ego where they walk out and they go, no one knows that I'm playing, you know, a D minor flat 5 scale against a whatever. But in actual fact, a lot of them actually do know exactly what you're doing. You know, don't ever think the audience is stupid. I say that to people all the time, because there could be just one guy out there that's from a record label going, I was going to sign you, but you're a dick, so I'm not signing you now.
Yeah.
You know how often that's happened?
Yeah.
I know because I've been that guy in the audience.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Where I've been at shows going, I've heard this guy's great. And, you know, so I'm going there to look at him to think, maybe we can work with him or something. And you go, yeah, I'm not working with you.
How important is mindset
Very much.
and attitude
Very much.
and the way that you treat people?
Yeah.
Like,
You don't want to work with idiots. You don't want to work with people that people aren't going to like.
yeah.
It's not only about your talent. There's so many people that are talented, but you've also got to kind of be a nice guy, a nice
person,
nice
yeah.
person, nice girl. You know, you've got to be.
Yeah.
You don't want to upset the apple cart too much, but you don't want to be a pushover either. You know,
Mm.
you want to walk into a room and people go, gee, you know, they're really cool. And boy, they're really good at what they do. They're usually going to get much further than some guy that walks in, they go, wow, he's amazing, but boy, he's really hard to work with. You know?
Yeah.
It's like an actor that doesn't know their lines. It's a classic story in theatre or films. Someone's incredible, but if you walk onto the set the first time you don't know your lines, it's like a black mark.
Yeah.
There's a whole crew ready to film you.
Yeah,
Like-
and they're all there.
Right.
It's showtime.
And the
if
first time they go, yeah, cool, whatever.
bro, you can't even fucking remember your lines.
But by the third time, you're not going to get another gig.
Isn't that your job?
Yeah, right. I've seen that happen too. Heaps of times. And that's the worst thing. You don't want people saying to you about actors and singers. Well, I've heard it saying about singers as well. Don't book her, she doesn't know her lyrics. Or don't book him, he doesn't know his lines. Great guy, fantastic actor. But again, do the work. You got to do your homework. You know,
You do your practice. You got to
Do
do
your
your
homework,
reading. You got to practice your skill. Yeah, and like mindset is so important.
it's incredibly important.
Yeah,
You know?
because I think as humans, what we do is we look at other people, and yeah, there's that whole comparison thing, and we do all of that, but we can sense when shit's not right.
Yeah, we're really good at that.
Yeah,
We're really good at that. You know, and when you work in the visual arts like you do, or in music like I do, then you're talking about so the visual especially. People are used to looking at people's faces. That's what we've done since we were babies.
yeah,
We read expressions really well.
yeah.
So, you know, trying to capture something that you've got in your mind, it's so important because people can see it if it's not real.
Yeah.
And in music's the same. We're used to the human voice is the first thing we kind of hear.
Yeah.
So to be able to emote in a song, in a lyric, when you're actually singing, singers that can interpret emotionally are the ones that always get to the top.
Well, you're listening to stuff when you're in the womb.
That's what I'm saying. It's like,
You're vibrating to sounds around.
I often say this to people, you know, the voice is a great example of someone where, you know, that they have to turn around if they like the voice.
Yeah.
Well, and I say to people, I often say, even to my musician friend, who's your favourite singer? And they might go, oh, man, I love Bruce Springsteen. Well, they'd never turn around for him. Right? You see what I'm saying? It's like, it's not the way, it's a great idea for TV, but it's not realistic.
Yeah, yeah.
People are not going to, if Elvis Presley went on there, they wouldn't turn around. They just would not.
Can you imagine if Elvis went on there?
Well, some great professional singers have gone on. Some friends of mine, and they haven't done it.
yeah,
And we're talking about session singers that have sung on everything.
yeah.
You know, they sing the arse off all those people.
That's interesting.
Yeah, they didn't turn around. It's because it's not about, you know, the vocal gymnastics and all that. It's about something else.
Yeah,
You know, and if you're looking for that vocal gymnastic thing, or you're looking for that person that's going to bring the ratings in because they come from a broken family who's just lost their dog, and you know, all this stuff, I could go on. So, I tell people, don't get carried away with that. It's a TV show. Don't get too invested in. Just concentrate on what you do best, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy. It's such a
I mean, some people want to do the TV thing.
Yeah, it's fine if they do. I have no issue with it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a great training ground for young people there. Elton John has gone online, it's gone quoted for saying how much he hates those shows because he thinks it destroys rather than builds up talent.
Well, because it gives them a false sense of what, like, things could be like.
Well, I think
because it's just propelled them so fast.
I think what it does, it's based on celebrity. It's not based on your skill. It's not based on your talent.
Yeah.
It's based on how can we get our heads on TV so that everyone watches us.
Yeah.
It's not really based on the other thing where, man, can the guy sing and play, or can she sing and play, or, half the time, some of these people that get through those shows, some friends of mine who run big corporate entertainment companies, they get asked to book them because these guys that are working for these corporates, they think, well, they're cool. But of course, they've never done a show. So they die because they don't know how to entertain an audience. They don't have enough material to do a 45-minute show or something. They haven't got the grounding yet. The shows don't tell you that.
Yeah.
So it makes it difficult for these kids.
Yeah.
And some of them aren't kids, some of them are adults,
Yeah, exactly.
So it's, I don't know. But it is what it is today on TV. Reality TV is all like that. I mean, you can go on an island and not have any skills at all except for being able to eat tarantulas and you'll get on TV, right?
Goddamn, Survivor.
Right. I mean, come on.
Or like get locked in a house.
Right.
God damn.
I saw something in the gym this morning that Mickey Rourke got kicked out of Big Brother in the UK. Was it UK?
Yeah, in the UK.
He did something horrible, of course.
Yeah,
imagine getting booted out. You're like a big Hollywood actor.
He was saying something, but then a news article. I was trying to work out because the news article was like someone got their genitals injured.
Oh, that'll do it.
And then I was like, hang on a minute. Is it the person that was in the house? What the fuck was going on? But then I slowly worked. It was the two separate incidences. And so it's just kind of like.
Well, I just saw his face on the TV.
Bro, how much work has he had done?
Jeepers, I know. It's crap.
It's way too much money.
I think so.
Yeah, look, I think the whole TV thing, it's an option for people to go down.
I don't mean to put it down. I'm not negative about it. I'm very realistic about what it is. And it's a TV show.
Exactly.
So I know it's a TV show.
Yeah.
And I know it's about ratings.
Correct.
Unfortunately, some of the people that go on there don't get that.
Correct.
And so if you're very clear about what it is, then your heart won't be broken as much.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh my God, I've seen it happen so often. These young kids that grow up in a family, and of course they start singing when they're young, and they're singing into the hairbrush in front of the mirror. And my God, she's amazing. And the parents just build her up.
Yeah.
She sings in front of her aunties and her uncles and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Let's put her on. And of course, he or she doesn't get through. Heart gets broken. And quite often, that's the end of it.
Yeah.
They'll go and do something else.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
That's what I don't like about it. Is we don't need to discourage. We need to encourage. Right? We need to empower. That's what we need to do.
And encourage all the right behaviours.
Yeah.
Encourage all the right things to allow people to grow and, cultivate the craft that they've got.
But it's a pretty cutthroat business still today. So that's never changed. You can either cut the mustard or you just got to get out. And that's happened a lot too. And that's a difficult thing to take if you're a young person and you're very easily influenced.
Yeah.
By what other people tell you.
Easily influenced by the flashy new gadget.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. What advice would you give your younger self?
Me? Well, I had an opportunity when I was this is not a regret, by the way. I don't regret anything, but I did have an opportunity when I was younger to go and study in the US.
Right.
When I was a young guitar player, to go do some stuff at Berkeley, and I didn't take it up because there were a lot of things, a lot of reasons why. Because I'm such a family person and a young kid, mum and dad, I was so connected to them, and I was kind of a little bit scared about going to live overseas on my own, and all these things were going. I mean, living in the US, you know.
Yeah.
But I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I would have gone and studied there, and what connections I would have made, where my career would have gone. Would it have been any better? I don't know. But I guess if you think about all the connections and friends and relationships with people I've had since then, well, I wouldn't trade that for that. So it's a hard thing to say, isn't it? That's probably the only thing. I don't have any regrets like that. You know, I've been very lucky to be in the industry this long, still doing it.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It's very cool.
And made a living out of it, you know.
And also, I guess, just listening to like your background with like your family and the stories and how supportive they were, and like you just would have had so many opportunities to get like diverted off the path.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
But like to stay on it
Yeah.
for so long and to be
I'm
good at it.
pretty determined, you know. And I did learn very early on that perseverance really is important, and hard work. And you know, man, I practiced and worked really hard. Yeah, it's not that people say, well, you know, it came easy for me, so I didn't have to do the work. That's crap. At some point, you got to do. It's like doing a uni course, man. You know, you don't just get through and get your PhD. It takes so much work.
Yeah.
You know, no one's that smart. You have to actually do the work at some point.
They never see the work.
Even if you're a genius, you've still got to write the paper.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand the process, the discipline that's involved. You know?
Yeah.
So I'm very lucky. I've just I've done really well and worked with some of the greats. You know, so that's been fun. And you know, I've had a lot of great experiences of. I've had I'm very lucky to have had the last I think 7 or 8 albums I produced have all gone to the top of the charts in their respective charts. You know, so that's like in a row. That's pretty good. Like 7 or 8 number ones.
That's amazing.
I wish it was back in the day when number ones like mean millions of dollars, but it's not. Doesn't it? It's still good to say.
God damn.
It looks good on the CV, as I tell people.
It's an achievement.
Yeah. It's something, you know.
Yeah.
It's something I can say that I'm proud of.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm glad to be in it. The music industry's changing, and I think as long as you change with it, stay on top of the technology, you won't get old. That's the thing.
Oh, that's so important.
Gotta be careful, right?
Adaptability and moving with the times.
You must face that every day.
Every single day.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I don't know. Like I'm 46 this year, and people are always like, man, you seem like you're in your 30s.
Yeah, right. You do.
I think it's because of my mindset.
You have a young mindset.
Yeah, it's my young mindset. And I'm like, you know what? I'm hungry to like learn new things and do things quicker, and, you know, like, but do it with purpose and value.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And that's why I set this podcast up, so I can meet great people and
It's a great way to do it.
tell people stories, you know, shift it away from my clients and me and more to individuals sitting down
I think
having.
it's a fantastic idea.
When do you ever get to sit down with 100 people for 2 hours and just talk to them?
Yeah,
you know?
no, you don't. It doesn't happen very often. Does
Yeah.
It? Yeah.
So, what's your latest album that's out, Michael?
Oh, so this is it. It's called in Italian. It's called Mai Finirà, which translates to it means it never ends.
Nice.
There's a big infinity symbol on the back, as you can probably see. So that's the whole vibe of it all. All Italian songs. They're all original songs. It's kind of a rock, adult contemporary kind of style.
Yeah.
But for those of you that like Italian European music, streaming now on Spotify.
Amazing. How can people contact you?
Yeah, just go to my website, michaelcristiano.com, and that's Michael. And Cristiano has no H in it. It's just got, if you can see, it's got just CRISTIANO.com, and you can find out all about me on there, and Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, stream, listen, watch, and of course, watch this.
Absolutely.
I can't wait to see this.
This will be out tomorrow.
Oh, watch it.
Let me just take a quick selfie. Amazing. Well, Michael, thank you so much
mate.
for
It's been
coming
so much fun
on board.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can't wait to listen to the album. Actually,
Yeah. Oh, it's yours.
I'm gonna
sign it
chuck
for
on
as well.
Yeah, awesome. I'll grab a pen.
I've got a gold pen. You need a special pen.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
Because it's Italian. Australian pens don't work.
Thanks everyone for listening in. Make sure you hit subscribe, that notification bell, and I'll catch you guys all on the next one. See ya.